Beloved, we apologize for the technical difficulties when the message, we were trying to get the message of hope out to the people, and the enemy tried to stop us. But we are back in continuing and sharing the message of what to do when you are afraid to hope. And when we left off, we were talking about learning when to come closer to the pain, learning when to come closer to the pain. And one of the things that we were saying is that it is human nature to avoid pain, which comes out of a good place. But there are times and ways in which the capitalistic environment we live in pulls us and encourages us and incentivizes us to avoid pain, to use money, to spend money and efforts to avoid pain or avoid difficult circumstances or situations. Even the ways in which many of our neighborhoods are constructed in ways for us to avoid coming to face with or experiencing people in our society who are having challenges. And so neighborhoods are segregated not always by race, but sometimes by economic level, as a way of giving people the option to buy into avoidance of the challenges that come with living in a connected society. But beloved, we have to learn to develop the spiritual capacity to learn when it is important or necessary for us to come closer to the pain. God takes the prophet Ezekiel in this vision of the valley of dry bones, and God does not allow the prophet in this vision to simply stay aloft, to stay in a perched position, to sit on a balcony, and on that balcony to view what is happening in the valley of dry bones. But God calls the prophet to walk among the dry bones. If you read these, verse number 2, it says, the prophet says that God led me all around them. There were very many lying in the valley, and they were very dry. The prophet was not able just to sit high up and look down at the valley, but the prophet was called to walk in the valley, walk around the valley, walk amidst the bones, look at the bones, to be close to see what is happening. Brian Stevenson calls this being proximate. He says we have to increase our ability to be proximate to the pain, beloved, and that is what God is calling us to do. And in fact, God calls us to do this because this is the way that God deals with and responds to us. That God does not simply look at our pain from afar, that God does not look at our conditions from afar. But one of the reasons why I am so glad to be a Christian is because part of our Christian faith is the articulation of the fact that God is with us in our day-to-day struggles. That like when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in the fiery furnace, God did not email or telegram or UPS deliverance to them in the fiery furnace, but the Bible says that God got down and walked with them in the midst of the fiery furnace, so that even King Nebuchadnezzar, the one who put them in the fiery furnace, when he saw them, said, I put 3 people in there, but I see 4 four are walking around, and the fourth one looks like the Son of God. The fourth one looks like somebody with divine power. The fourth one looks like somebody who has divine presence. Even King Nebuchadnezzar had to admit that he saw God with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in their fiery furnace. And beloved, that's how God treats us. God does not stand and look down at our problems from heaven. But I remember my grandmother saying that God sits high, but he looks low, that God isn't so far from us that God can't see us in our problems. But I heard a songwriter say, I sing because I'm happy, and I sing because I'm free, because God's eye is on the sparrow. But I know God watches me. God is proximate to us. And just as God comes closer to our pain, we can have the capacity to come closer to our own pain, to sit in our own distress, to be real about what we are experiencing, and to come closer to the pain in our communities. We've got to learn when to come closer to the pain, beloved. The last thing I want to say in this is that we are able, beloved, to hope, to increase our capacity for hope, even when we are afraid, when we lean in on faith. When we lean in on faith. Friends and family, lean in is a phrase that is often used in contemporary culture to invite somebody to be more present, to be more aware, to be more engaged. Lean in is a way of saying, of noticing that somebody may be distant, but invites them to come a little bit closer. Lean in is a way of saying that you have the capacity to be more fully engaged than you are. And so I want to invite us to lean in on faith. Notice, beloved, that once God brings the prophet into the valley of dry bones, into this spiritual experience that serves as a practice arena for the message of hope that God has yet to give the prophet, that once the prophet is in this practice arena and is proximate to the pain, God asks the prophet the relevant question of the text. Right there in the midst of the pain, right there in the midst of the brokenness, right there in the midst of the remains of people whose lives were lost, right there in the valley of dry bones. These bones, which represented people who once were alive, these bones who represented people who once had strength and vitality, these bones that are the remains of something that was once great but now has fallen and decayed. And the fact that the prophet says the bones were dry indicates that they've been around for such a long time that any trace of life has been taken from, has been dried up out of the bones. And in this place of extreme pain, of extreme loss, in this place where there is only a reminder of what once was, God asks the prophet the relevant question of the text. Prophet, preacher, can these bones live? As you were there in the midst of the pain, as you were there in the midst of regret, as you were there in the midst of the reminders of what once was or what could have been, as you were there amongst these dry bones, I want to ask the question, can these bones live? Is there any hope for these bones? And I believe, beloved, that the prophet Ezekiel in this place is struggling to believe. Perhaps like the father who brought his son to Jesus and said, Jesus, please heal my son if it's possible. And Jesus says, all things are possible to the ones who believe. And the father says, Jesus, I believe. Help my unbelief. In other words, Jesus, I'm trying to believe, but please help me in the places where I don't yet believe. Ezekiel is in this place where he is caught between despair and hope, caught between belief and unbelief, caught between faith and fear. And so Ezekiel, I believe, friends and family, Ezekiel not wanting to state what he fears, worried that what he says will be more of a reflection of his fear than his faith, does not answer the question. Ezekiel is non-responsive to the question. God says, can these bones live? And Ezekiel won't answer the question. I believe because Ezekiel isn't sure of the answer himself. And so Ezekiel gives the question back over to God and says, God, only you know. In other words, God, I don't know. I want the bones to live, but I don't know if they can. God, only you know. God, I want to have hope, but I'm afraid to have hope because all I see is despair. God, only you know. And rather than pronouncing the eulogy on the bones that are dead in the valley, rather than pronouncing the benediction on the spiritual experience, because he struggles to believe that anything good can come from the pain, Ezekiel gives the question back over to God and says, God, if there's any hope for these bones, if anything can happen from it, you know. So I'm not going to answer the question because I'm afraid of what the answer might be. But I know if I give it to you, I know if I place it in your hands, I know if I listen to your word, I know if I follow your leading in my life, I know if I listen to you, then I can find the answer that I hope for, then I can find the answer that I want there to be. I know if I give it to you, then there can be hope, maybe not in the way that I want it to be, but hope that can exceed my expectations. Ezekiel does not speak out of this place caught between faith and fear, but Ezekiel leans into faith by giving it back over to God. Beloved, I want to remind you what the writer said in the book of Hebrews when he teaches us that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. In other words, when you can't see it and you don't have anything else to hold on to your faith. Give it over to God and hold on to your faith. I don't know how the story is going to end. I can't imagine how we get from here to where we want to be. But God, I know that you know. And so I'm just going to hold on to my faith. I hear Job coming to the witness stand to testify for us today. And Job said, I was sick in my body and lost all my possessions. My family was in turmoil. My friends were saying it was all my fault. I was alone in my suffering, but I knew that even when I felt alone, that God was still with me. And so I said, even though I can't see God, God, I'm trusting that you see me, that you know the road I'm on, that you know what I am experiencing. And when I come out, I don't know how it's going to happen, but when I come out, I don't know when it is going to happen. But when I come out, I will come out not as broken, not as battered, not as torn to pieces, not as a shadow of myself. But when I come out, I will come out as pure gold. And beloved, I want to encourage you to lean in, to hold on to your faith. That as we practice the ability to increase our capacity for hope, if we can just lean in to faith and say, God, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I'm trusting that if I follow you, God, I don't know how things will get better, but I'm trusting if I take time to reconnect to you. God, I don't know how this is, how a way is going to be made, but I'm trusting if I take time to sing songs that encourage my spirit. God, I don't know how to overcome these obstacles, but I'm trusting if I take time to hear the preached word. God, I don't know how to navigate this season of busyness that I feel, but I'm trusting if I take time to engage in a Sunday slowdown. God, I'm trusting if I take time to stay connected to you, even though I can't see the way, even though I don't know how it happens. But if I just lean in on faith, if I hold on to my faith, then holding on to the faith can help me until God speaks a word, can help me until I see the vision begin to come together. It can help me until God moves in my situation. When you're afraid to hope, beloved, you practice finding hope. Learn when to come closer to the pain and lean in on your faith. Thank you, beloved, and God bless you. We'll now have our invitation.
Thank you, Pastor. And thank you, beloved friends and family, for joining us for worship today. And just, I know we had some technical difficulties, and so I'm just grateful for those who were able to reconnect with us to hear just the amazing encouragement as our pastor closed out the sermon. I want to take a minute and go to God in prayer together. Dear God, thank you for today. Thank you for this opportunity to be in worship together, to experience your love, to experience your power, to be encouraged by the word, to know that we are a part of a community that is working together to know you more deeply and to bring about justice and peace in the world. God, I am so grateful for each and every person who was a part of today's service, each and every person who showed up and witnessed and experienced the movement of your spirit within and among us. I am so grateful for everyone who will watch these broadcasts after the fact. And God, I just pray for every heart that is in need of healing. Hopefully, prayerfully, that they have been encouraged today, that they are changed today. For the better, that each and every one of us, as we navigate a world with so much destruction and pain and injustice and inequity, that we can hold on to hope, that we can be encouraged by today's message to practice hope, knowing that we become what we practice, that we can be encouraged today by the call to come, to know when to come closer to the pain so that we can fully understand our heart's deepest desires and ways that can catapult us to action. And God, I just pray that we are all encouraged today to lean into faith in those hard moments where hope is hard to come by. Where the pain seems too heavy, that we can trust and remember that you have us. You have always had us, and that you will bring along our path individuals to help us along the way. So God, just grateful for today, grateful for the message, grateful for all of the people, all of your people, God. I pray that each person goes forward into the rest of their week, joining us in the talk back session, knowing that they are loved, they matter, they are seen, and that we are grateful for their lives. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thank you again, friends and family, for joining us. I want to invite you to join us for the talkback session here. Some folks have already jumped on. I want to encourage those who are watching this broadcast to add, to join into that conversation. We'll have about a 20-minute talk, just reflecting on how today's message is living inside of us. You can go to our website at belovedcommunitychurch.com. And if you scroll down, you'll find a button that says click to join our talkback session. Click that button and it'll enter you into the Zoom meeting. And friends and family, just want to remind all who are watching that if you are in need of prayer, if you are in need of a community of people, if you are struggling to find hope and you want to know that there are folks praying with you as you are trying to practice finding hope in your life, we would love to pray with you, to be with you in that journey. You can let us know on our website at belovedcommunitychurch.com/prayer. And we have some prayer warriors who will pray for you and with you if you want, to help you to know and to feel God's love and presence in your life. And also, friends and family, I just want to encourage you to let us know if you have visited with us and you are interested in connecting with a community of love and justice. We would love to know if this is true for you, and to be present with you on your journey. You can let us know at belovedcommunitychurch.com/connect. We would love to be present with you on your journey and to know how we can be a part of your family. And then finally, friends and family, I encourage you to continue to lean into the spirit of giving as we work to create a beloved community in Cincinnati and in the world at large. You can let us know, you can lean into that spirit of giving rather on our website at belovedcommunitychurch.com/give. Again, friends and family, I am so grateful for each and every one of you. And I pray that the rest of your week is encouraged by today's message, and that you are moving forward in your day, changed by your experience this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. God bless you.